I'm just going to give you a brief overview today of the Somerset Youth Justice team in regards to both education and one of our interventions, which is called Turnaround. Just to give you an overview of the aim of the presentation, like I said, it's to give you an overview of the Turnaround project and my role inside prevention services and the state of the educational system inside of the Youth Justice team at this point in time. Just to make you aware that I am actually qualified. So I started off years and years ago doing my teacher training in 2008. I qualified. I rose really quickly up through the ranks to become head of year. And then within sort of 6 or 7 years was assistant head and then deputy head of behaviour of an all-through academy with about 1,800 children. And then inclusion lead, safeguarding lead, behavioural lead, and then I left in 2022. I joined the Family Intervention Service and Children's Services. I then became the educational thematic lead inside of FIS, and then for the last 18 months, I've run a project reducing exclusions across the whole of Somerset. So I like to make this as really clear cut as easy and as easy as possible. People think that education is really confusing and it's actually really not. So I will try and clarify that over the course of the next 10 minutes. So if we think about the demographics inside the Somerset Youth Justice Service, we have about 198 children who started programs within the YJT. And what I want to do is give you a quick brief overview of what those children look like. And we have to bear in mind that these are children who are entering the youth justice system following acts of criminality, and they are still children. So we're going to look at the age, gender, ethnicity, those with SEND and the ones of risk of exploitation. I think what's staggering, and this is what I found particularly staggering over the last 18 months, is that 34% of the children who we have inside the youth justice system at the moment are between 10 years old and 14 years old. We have a cohort of children who are predominantly key stage 4, so years 10 and year 11, 14, 15, 16 years old. They make up the vast majority of our cohort. We've got a few post-age statutory school children, but we do have children who are entering the service at 10 years old and 11 years old, which is quite staggering and quite worrying at this point in time. About 20% of our entire cohort are made up of girls, and we are nationally disproportionately higher in regards to young females entering the youth justice service than most other counties across the country. We've just written our youth justice plan for the next 3 years, and we've got a focus on tackling the disproportionality of girls, particularly inside of the 3 major hubs in Somerset, and putting together some girls groups that will specifically target girls from entering the youth justice system. In regards to the SEND situation, the majority of children we work with also have EHCPs and recognise SEND needs. Just over a third of all of our children have an EHCP. And so this causes particular issues as well when we think about children who have reduced educational provision or lesser timetables or specific learning needs that have potentially become unmet. And these all merge together to exacerbate the vulnerabilities of these young people and lead to them entering our service. Again, reinforced by the fact that almost 60% of our entire cohort have had some children's social care involvement or FIS involvement, early help intervention, when they enter the youth justice system. And that actually increases slightly when these children start statutory court-ordered programs as well. So we have a range of children inside the youth justice service who have really complex vulnerabilities, and the work that we do essentially is to negate them from becoming more embroiled in the system and to sort of do the desistance work to stop them from reoffending. Just to give you a quick overview of the state of education in Somerset at the moment, there are just under 75,000 children in Somerset at this point in time from reception to year 11. So we work with a really small cohort of children. We have about 80 children open at this moment in time, so a very small proportion. there are approximately 11,000, 10,000 children who have got SEND support, and just over 6,000 children in EHCP inside of Somerset as well. And to put it into context, there are 603 looked after children. There are just under 400 children in child in need plans. So whilst our situation is very, very niche, we only form a very small part of the picture in Somerset at this point in time. What is shocking at this point in time, though, is the number of children who are persistently absent from school, and those children that have missed 30 plus sessions. So a session is a morning mark or an afternoon mark. So essentially missing 30 sessions is missing 15 days of school. And out of the 75,000 children in Somerset, just under 15,000 children have missed 15 days of school this academic year. And these figures are also increasing. So we've just taken on in prevention. We've just been joined by the educational safeguarding team. So they've just joined prevention services as well. And so that educational assistance work as well will also sit inside of prevention at the same time. This information, the data on the screen, is actually slightly out of date. When I wrote the presentation 2 weeks ago, there were 118 permanent exclusions in Somerset. That's actually more like 128 now. And last year, there were 148 across the whole academic year. So we have approximately 5 weeks left of this academic year. So whether or not we will see the same level of permanent exclusions as last year, I'd hasten my bets to say we probably will. Why is this particularly prevalent when we think about youth justice? And that is because about 60% of all the children who come through youth justice have been permanently excluded from school. So you have the vulnerabilities of being permanently excluded from school, EHCP, undiagnosed or recognised SEND need, poor attendance, probably open to services, and all of these vulnerabilities combine, and then we see these children entering our service. So education is part of the Somerset Youth Justice Service. All school-age children, all children in England are entitled to education under the 1966 Education Act, and that is defined as generally 25 hours a week for 39 weeks per school year. In some places you may see as being 31 hours a week, depending if they include lunchtimes and after-school clubs or break times as well. But the general proviso is that every child is entitled to 25 hours of education per week. And why is it important? Because actually there are established links between low engagement, risk of offending, and it is highly likely that children and young people aren't engaged in education, training and employment are more likely to offend and then subsequently re-offend. So we have a legal obligation to ensure that all of our children are in some form of full-time education or education, training and employment package. And that's the difficulty of the job. So my job is to ensure that as a service, we are meeting the educational needs of all of those children. So we challenge inappropriate educational provision. We call TAF and TAC meetings with families and providers. We provide advice, guidance and training to professionals on educational provision, part-time timetables and so on and so forth. So that is the role at this point in time. And I sat in a meeting a few weeks ago when we were designing the youth justice plan moving forward, and I explained to the entire audience, actually, this isn't rocket science. That education in any way, shape or form, whether that is full-time 25 hours sat in a classroom doing core subject, or that is a combination of 25 hours in a classroom with some appropriate timetable provision in place, regardless of what the provision is, education is the most effective tool of diverting children away from reoffending, and it is recognized that education will do all those things on screen: improve cognitive and non-cognitive skills, reduce reoffending rates, increase attainment, and allow children the pathways that they need to be successful with the rest of their lives. So therefore we have to ensure that education is front and center of everything we do inside the youth justice system. So linking into that, we have a project called Turnaround, which has been running for about the last 3 years. It was put in place by the Ministry of Justice. And what it does is it allows the Somerset Youth Justice team to improve the outcomes for children who are on the periphery or the cusp of entering the youth justice system, so we can catch them early. Turnaround is open between 10 and 17-year-olds who come through our out-of-court panel who are subject to a no further action or an outcome 22 or receiving a first time youth caution. And we can put some provision in place to stop these children from essentially reoffending again. And turnaround works through, as I said, it works through the out of court panel. We triage the child out of court. We look at whether turnaround would be effective and whether or not we can support those children who are generally at school at that point in time because they haven't gone through the processes as described. And we can support them with their mental health concerns. We can support them with substance misuse, mentoring. We can support with school absence and exclusions. And we have a variety of external partners that we can refer into. So at the moment, we have a contract with SASP and with Action Track to provide some mentoring, some emotional mental health support. We have our own intervention worker who will deliver the assessment and meet with the family and the child and look at what the strengths-based needs are of that family and child at that point in time, and put effective intervention in place to stop those young children from reoffending and actually entering the youth justice system proper, so to speak. So that's turnaround. We have a budget of just under £100,000 this year, and we are held responsible to the Ministry of Justice for financially reporting on the number of children that we are successful in stopping from entering the youth justice system. So we have to work with a given number of children over the 4 quarters, and we have to demonstrate success in order to essentially ensure that the grant is followed through. So I track all of the turnaround funding. I track all of the turnaround interventions. I've got a really swift, neat little spreadsheet that I use to track everything, and then we report quarterly to the Ministry of Justice, and that will take place over the course of the next 10 months. And then hopefully, because this program's been really successful, and in fact actually the irony of today is that I received an email from the Ministry of Justice today thanking Somerset for the outstanding work it's done with turnaround in the last 2 years, because we have a quota of 25 children, and last year we worked with over 200. So we've gone above and beyond what our expectations are, and we've stopped a considerable number of children from entering the system.